There can be only one podcast. It may be the Prince of the Universe. Hi, folks. I'm Matt.
And I'm Wes.
And this is Heath one more time.
I'm so glad you're back. Can you repeat what you just said? Off mic there.
The previous episode, we were comparing Star Wars and MTV, and I said, oh, I just came up with a good line. So, I mean, how many people can really say that they got laid to Star Wars compared to a lot of the music stuff that was going on in the 80s in MTV? It's fair.
True.
It's fair.
Like the way your brain thinks there, sir. Because let's look at the numbers.
Well, I mean,
what's been more impactful to you, Heath?
I don't know. When I see a little
before that or after that occasion?
After.
Okay.
I mean,
wait. What about Princess Leia in the middle bikini?
I thought it was cool, but I mean, I didn't bust a nut or nothing over it. Does that need to be added in? Sorry.
Heath, you saw that in 1983 and you were 11? Is that correct?
83, I would have been,
Okay.
11.
Okay.
I don't know if any 11-year-old needs to hear that.
Sorry.
Anyway, I wanted Heath back on because it was 2 episodes ago. We were talking about music in general. The conversation shifted to trends in music and stuff like that, and it was fine. It was a good topic, but I wanted to save that one because I did want to talk about how, like you said, you hated grunge. Grunge hit the scene
And rap.
And rap. It changed music. Okay, and then you have the pop and hip hop that got rid of that put grunge to rest in a way. Or, I guess it started off, I don't know, New Kids on the Block, would it be? Either way, though, but music tastes change over time and still do today. Mm-hmm. The old techno beats of the early 2000s and stuff like that.
Yep.
There's these, and disco, and if you want to go to the 70s or whatnot, and the hair metal,
Hip hop took over the 90s, and it changed.
And hip-hop took over the 90s.
It changed the whole entire landscape of.
So with me and Matt working in comic shops,
and
in that time frame, you were in the same mall working at the music store.
Correct.
And so you got to see these trends.
So you see
as
it firsthand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always wish that I would have been 5 years older and I would have started working the mall in the mid-late 80s when all the music that I loved was going on. But when I started working in the mall at the music store, it was April of 92. Grunge was just fixing to hit, like, hard. And then hip-hop was starting to really come on.
That was 94 more for, Chronic, right?
So
but there were other novelty type
Sure.
stuff that was coming on, like, crisscross jump and all that other stuff like that. I hated every bit of all of that because I was
Here we go.
Well, I'm just saying, I loved.
Oh boy!
I mean, obviously, my favorite artist of all time is Prince, but I also liked all the hair metal stuff that was back then. So get that picture down. And so basically, in my eyes, grunge and hip hop destroyed everything that I loved.
So
that's
wow.
That is my opinion, and I'll stick to it.
Okay, my next question is, what was the album or the band that you said, oh no, this is here to stay? It doesn't have to be the first band to invent grunge. What was the album or the band you went, so this is going to be a thing now?
No, it was Nirvana.
It was Nirvana.
It was Nirvana, and then Pearl Jam.
Okay.
And then Soundgarden, and then Alice in Chains. Mm-hmm. Although Alice in Chains had been out in 1990 because I saw them when they opened for Van Halen. And I was like, this is weird. I don't know if I like this or not. So, but then the second album, Dirt, came out in 92, hit big. Stone Temple Pilots was right after that. Yep. All of a sudden, all this copy grunge started coming out, so it took over. And but it was the critics, I can't tell you how much grunge stuff we sold, during
Oh, it was huge.
92
It was huge.
to 95, really.
Yeah. It's huge.
The soundtrack from the movie Singles was huge. That
Yep.
was based in Seattle. That really brought on the grunge scene as well. So, I was there for all of that. And, looking back at it, I mean, like I said, I can tolerate, I really like a lot of those songs now. I mean, STP, love it. Some of the Pearl Jam stuff, good. I can even listen to some Nirvana stuff. But I was set in my ways back then, and it killed my music. And I was like, I wasn't open in my head to try new things.
So I guess let me give you another one though. What was the first album or rapper that you went, oh, so this is? I'm asking you the same question but with rap that you noticed. Doesn't have to be the first rapper that started and got it cut in.
Well, when rap first really started hitting, I mean, obviously it started in the early '80s.
Right.
There were little bits here during the mid '80s and stuff. Honestly, being in junior high, like in the mid '80s, and all of a sudden, Two Live Crew comes out, and I'm not gonna say the name of the song just because I already said something bad. But anyway, when you're a kid, when you're a kid, and all of a sudden you're hearing dirty lyrics that you've never heard before, and you're going, "Wow, this is the coolest thing in the world." Obviously, it sold a lot. So, Two Live Crew was huge. Then Run DMC right after that. With the,
Well, don't you think that music always had a lot of sexual undertones? Rap just brought it.
Absolutely.
They just made it very evident.
At first, it was.
Well, I don't think Marvin Gaye was whistling Sesame Street songs either.
No, he wasn't. No,
So,
he wasn't.
He was pretty direct.
Yeah.
But do you think Marvin Gaye was? Okay. Let's go to that.
Yeah.
I don't. That I think was obviously a sexual tone, but it did not have the.
Rap became scary because you had all of a sudden the NWA. You had the gangster rappers hit. That was where Middle America's going, what the heck is this stuff?
I think Chronic was the album that.
Oh,
broke that.
Chronic to this day is an all-time masterpiece.
And I think of that because of MTV too.
Yeah.
I think that's what MTV really got behind.
I have to admit, Chronic was probably one of the things that I did enjoy back then. We used to listen to that a lot. I mean, obviously, look at Snoop Dogg now. He's almost an icon.
Yeah.
You could call him an icon.
I think he is an icon.
So, I mean, he's outlasted
everything.
all of it. I mean, Dr. Dre's a billionaire.
Yeah.
So, selling headphones and
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So, I mean, some of them ended up, doing really well. Ice Cube. I mean, look at Ice Cube. He's
They've really gone on to successful careers.
Yeah. The ones that didn't, obviously they're either dead or not here or whatever. But I mean, you have a small group like the ones we just said that have outlasted, and become part of the lexicon of America, really, if you think about it, or the world.
So hair metal bands, that's your thing.
It was.
And you wish you were around during that time, selling, working at the music store.
Well, the mall. Go ahead.
No, well, okay. So, but you had said that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you: is there anything previous to hair metal that you're like, wow, I wish I would have been around during that time when these albums were coming out? When
God, absolutely.
Beatles. What are some bands? What are some eras that you really said, man, that would have been cool?
I love a lot of British artists.
Okay.
If you don't like the Beatles, I mean, that's a whole nother story. But I always felt that I was like born in the wrong decade.
That's what I'm asking. Like, which decade do you wish you would have? Would it have been the 60s then?
I think the 60s would have been very interesting. I actually have thought that before. I think it would have been cool to be, yes, I was.
I mean, the Beatles were more impactful in music than MTV ever was.
The Beatles changed the world.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, they changed everything. So, yeah, I mean, the whole scene from the time the Beatles hit through Woodstock and, '69 and all that stuff. I mean, that's whole career defining, changing moments,
Right.
cultural moments, and all that. The '70s, dark period. A lot of great music come out, obviously. So being born in '72, just to show my age, I was able to get some of the '70s influence. My mom was always playing music, so she got me into listening to the '50s and '60s that she grew up listening to.
Okay.
So I enjoy that as well. You have to have, to me, you have to have appreciation of what came before based on what is out now, because it wouldn't be out if you didn't have,
If you didn't have this, yeah.
yeah, Elvis,
You didn't have your
Beatles,
Elvis, yeah.
so on and so on. Frank Sinatra before Elvis. I mean, Frank Sinatra was a pop legend, that was as big as the Beatles at one time.
He was. Big crooner, all the crooners. Dean Martin,
Yeah.
Sammy Davis Jr.,
So, I mean,
Jerry Lee Lewis.
yeah, so
Yep.
it would have been cool to have been like a teenager in the late '70s and then going into the MTV world. And then being old enough to go to the concerts that were coming out in the '80s, all the big bands that were out in the '80s, Prince, Michael Jackson, Springsteen, even like, Iron Maiden, or seeing Crew when they first came out, and seeing the formation of Guns N' Roses, and stuff like that. So I got to see a lot of that in the '90s, and I got to see some of it in the '80s, because I was in high school then. But so I'm really influenced by different decades, different genres. I mean, if you really want to look back at something you wish you could have seen, I mean, Queen with Freddie Mercury. I mean, who wouldn't have? Who wouldn't want to see
Yeah.
that back in the day? But, by '82, they stopped touring in the States.
Right.
So you weren't going to see it.
You're never going to see
So
it.
the only time by then, MTV wasn't even really hardly playing anything over.
Right.
Until he died.
And then they started.
And then
picking him
Wayne's
up.
World hit. And then
Wayne's World
boom.
blew him up. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
So, I mean, yeah.
So, I had the other question. I missed it. Okay. Well, let me just move on. I'll probably circle back around when I think about it. Napster, good or bad for music? Napster, if for young ones here, Napster was the first kind of file sharing, internet swapping, the downloading free music. That was your first thing that
Can I
come out.
answer? Before
Please.
Keith does, since he's talked more. I wanna get a
Absolutely.
little in here.
Go ahead.
I think Napster was good in the way that it challenged musicians to produce a more well-rounded product, or it showed that they were kind of three-hit wonders. Because it was quickly, oh, I like this song, I like that song, I like that song. You didn't have to spend $18 to figure out and then have like buyer's remorse. And I think that a lot of artists turned out a lot of products that were more filler than killer. So that's what I mean. I miss the days of that kind of stuff to a certain degree. I think there is we all miss the old days, but I definitely think that it exposed how some bands just didn't have the chops.
I loved file sharing in Napster when it first came out, because bootleg recordings have been out since
Forever.
audio recording has
Your
been around.
mixtapes, all that stuff.
Your mixtapes, somebody going to a concert, recording a concert, a live
Yep.
show or whatever. So all of a sudden you can get on Napster, you can get on some of the other these file sharing things, and all of a sudden there's this unreleased stuff that they say that's never going to be released, and somebody's got copies of this live show or these demos or an unreleased album or whatever. To me, I was a kid in a candy store. I thought it was like the greatest thing.
Yeah, someone released all of Rivers Cuomo's
Cuomo.
sorry, Rivers Cuomo's when he was in the studio, kind of going crazy after Pinkerton flopped. All those studio recordings, came out and leaked through Napster, and I was listening to them going, "Oh wow!" And it was just him strumming on the guitar, singing and everything. He really was kind of burned out on music at the time. But then all of those songs that he wrote after Pinkerton were still coming out in other albums. I think whatever came out after the Red album that was the last time I had heard a song that was on those old studio albums. So, I mean, he'd written all these songs before, and of course they're kind of beefed up a little bit, but I was like, oh, wow, I heard this years ago, decades ago on Napster. And Napster kind of introduced me. I think it was good because it introduced me to other bands that I usually would never listen to. I'm not going to buy a CD if I don't know what it sounds like. You know what I'm saying?
And
so
I think
was like,
that's how MTV helped music. If you saw the band and you heard that one song,
You had to
you were
hear
a
the
little more
song.
vested.
but with
Because if you
Napster, I
just
could try
hear
out
it, you're
any
kind of
band.
like, yeah. But if you see that band, you're like, oh, this is
Yeah.
cool.
I saw it kind of from a different way. I was always a music collector. I wanted the album, period. So
Well,
it was like, and even when I was downloading stuff from Napster, yes, I did it.
No,
I was still buying CDs.
No, the Jewel Case Tower was a treasure for me to see all the music I had, to pick out whatever I wanted to start playing it. That was great. But what Napster helped me out is find a bunch of little bands that I'd never heard of before, or just music I just never would have tried if I had not have gotten to download it.
And I used it for the opposite. It was where can I find stuff that I don't
Live
have
that
from
you
my
can't have.
favorite
I get that.
artists. That's what I used it
But
for.
for me, you had to have that one hit for me even to buy the CD. And the thing is, sadly, a lot of those one-hit wonders were that was the only thing on the track.
You are right there. There was a couple, and
They baited you with that one hit. You thought, oh, all their music
Yeah.
sounds like this. Oh, none of it does.
Well,
Just
we
that one
talked
hit.
off air weeks ago about direct market versus newsstand on comics and how detrimental that was to comics pulling off newsstand.
Yeah.
So you working in music as long as you did through a major peak. I mean, you could not sell more CDs than it was in the
That's true.
when I first
late 90s.
yeah.
I mean, those were
when
huge,
I first started
huge times.
when I first started working in the music store in '92, CDs were $18.99, and people were just offended by that. And hell yeah, I mean it was they were super high, and it took a couple of years before they started coming down, but then people were still buying them. So all of a sudden, but yet we still sold a lot of cassettes. We still sold a lot of cassette singles. The CD singles really weren't selling as much then. Everybody, like you said, they wanted the one song. Then they would come in and buy the the single, and then they might come in a week later and go, okay, I'll check that out or not. So gradually, over the 10 years that I worked in the music store business, obviously you went from 92 to where people were still buying mainly cassette, and then all of a sudden by 99, 2000, cassette singles were basically already phased out.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have them in cars
We still
anymore.
had this small little section of
I remember that.
cassettes, but it was CD. Everything was CD driven by then.
But the thing is, I would buy the single tapes only for the B-side song that wasn't on the album. All my favorite bands, and that was a smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You put some B-side leftover song, but for me, it was something that wasn't on the original album, and I had to have it.
Prince always had a B-side on most of the singles he did, and that you're right. That's exactly the reason that I bought them.
That was the only reason I didn't
Because
buy
you weren't going to get them anywhere else.
Yeah, you weren't gonna get them anywhere else back then. And the thing is, I'd already bought the album, but I'm gonna buy that single. If I look at it and see what the B song is, if that's because I knew all the names of all the their titles. Nope, that's a new one. Sold every time.
Well, with you working in a store, the kind of the way we were working, and we could see the market fluctuate in the years we were there and could have different insight. Was there a year that you were selling music where you go, oh, I can see the damage this is doing to this business model?
Ooh,
That's a good question.
that's
Gus.
a good question.
Very good.
Look at you, 60 Minutes.
Well, I can give. I mean,
Yeah, first thing comes to mind.
from a local point of view, when
Well, you weren't just in Louisiana; you were in Florida.
It doesn't have to
Well-
be profound. We just want it from your eyes.
well, I'm just talking about from when I was working here in Monroe.
Okay.
When Master P, y'all remember Master P, right?
Yep.
No Limit Records. He had all these offshoots: Sea Murder, Silk, Cain and Abel. There's so many I can't even remember. He saturated the market so much that it killed it. He killed his own business is what he did. So to me, I thought that was a profound thing. We literally had a wall of No Limit Records one time. He was putting out stuff like a couple of CDs, if not 3 or 4 a month. It seemed like there, and people were buying it, and then it died.
Well, I mean, I don't mean like that because, I mean, we can look at Kiss and it did that same thing with putting 4 solo albums out at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, like, when could you see your clientele and you could feel it in your job where you went, well, we are just not selling this stuff anymore?
I'll give you a short story that kind of made me kind of see the writing on the wall a little bit. Obviously, 2000, I moved to Florida and was managing a store for the chain that I was working at. And I think it was late 2001, 2002. It became to where all of a sudden the music stores, obviously DVDs had hit big, so DVDs were starting to pick up. But then all of a sudden everybody wanted to start carrying all this novelty stuff, and it's like, wait a minute, we're a music store, we're not.
Okay, so that's more of what I'm asking.
Where is all this other stuff coming? I mean, it was just.
But you saw that in Sound Shop in Monroe, because I remember when y'all started carrying so many T-shirts, like South Park shirts and stuff. I can remember y'all talking about, why aren't we carrying this?
Yeah.
But it was pop culture.
Yeah.
It did turn into that. Yeah, the Funko Pops.
I think going to a music store and getting a cool shirt of a band, that makes a lot of sense.
That makes sense. That's what the.
But I'm just saying, like, I can remember getting South Park shirts at that store, and that was the only place you could get them in the mall, was there.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah.
I just felt
the tide was turning where the music wasn't mattering anymore.
And do you feel like that had anything to do with MTV?
A little. Because by 2000, 2001, and 2, when I was there, MTV was mostly, just the reality stuff more than anything. Yeah, they had a sprinkling of it, and they had the Carson Daly stuff and all that, but, not as much. But it was just, you go back to Napster. I mean, that started around that same time. When I was in Florida, that's when I started downloading stuff. You would have your AOL modem, and you would spend 2 hours downloading something, and it'd get to 98%, and then your dial-up would click off. And I'd spend hours and hours in the middle of the night just staying up to make sure that this one thing. But anyway, it all of a sudden, it just didn't become about buying the music anymore. It was, you could tell that I could see the clientele slowing down. And the story that I was going to get to was when the owners of the store came in one day, and there had been kind of some rumblings about, all of a sudden they were going to sell and all this stuff. And, he looked me, I don't know why, but I looked at the owner dead in the eye and said, "Are y'all selling?" "No, we're not selling. There's no way we're ever going to sell this thing." And I was like, okay. Something told me it's time to go. It's time to get out. And within 6 months after I quit, they sold.
Who did they sell to?
Oh, God.
FYE?
No, not FYE at first. Some other little Music Express. I cannot remember.
But FYE eventually bought that brand.
Well, the one in
Warehouse?
the one in Monroe, yes. FYE took over, and FYE went from, being a music store to 100% novelties.
But FYE did not buy the particular franchise that you worked for in Florida.
No,
okay, that was my question.
I'm trying. I cannot remember the name of it. It was a no-name group that I'd never heard of before, and
just a regional probably.
Yeah, and they, obviously they changed the name of the one that, when it was still here in the, the Monroe thing. I just cannot remember the name of it because I was out, and and then. Everything
so you could
changed.
tell the fix was in, but the way the owner's response.
I could tell he was BSing immediately, and like I said, 6 months later, poof, gone, bye. And it changed, and all of a sudden the aesthetics of the we had moved back from Florida to Monroe. I would still come to the mall here. I would go visit my old friends that that were still at the music store and stuff, and you could see how that company had just started changing things. I mean, it was like
De-emphasizing.
It was the same building, same space, and all of a sudden it's like
New product.
yeah, yeah. And then of course FYE takes it over, and it became, it wasn't even 50-50 music and novelties. It was probably more like
1/3.
30% music, 70% novelties, and then by the time right before FYE finally shut down, it was almost 100%, if not right at it.
I remember Megan going in there once and me thinking, is this all they have?
Yeah.
Is this all they have? This is all the selection
It
they
was
have?
like legacy artists.
Because she was
only.
trying to find some Garth Brooks album that she used to listen to. She went, and they had hardly anything.
We were in Dallas a few months ago, and we were in this mall, and there was an FYE in there, and I was like, this place is still open. And I walked by and looked in it, nada on music. It was all just that garbage
Pop
novelty,
culture
like
stuff.
Spencer's
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
Like you can get anywhere. Gadzooks, old school Gadzooks and stuff.
No. Yeah, so, yeah, definitely the golden age of, to me, music was, the
MTV.
the 80s.
Okay,
Really
so
was.
you say that. We can bring someone else here who says the 90s was the best. I don't know if we could find someone. I'm sure there's someone out there who thinks the alts were the best. Is it just you
My
being...
daughter.
Okay, your daughter. There you go. So
Well,
fine
I mean,
example.
yeah, I mean, the music that's
It's
out
whatever
now,
you grew up to. That's what defines
It
your
is.
childhood.
It's
That's
what
what you
it's what
listened
you
to
grew
when
up
it's
to,
what you grew up
correct.
to. That's where you went when you went on vacation. Your music went with you. When you're hanging out with your friends, you're playing your music. That kind of defines your childhood. So you say it's over, but there's someone who's older than us who said no, it died way before the 80s.
No, each generation had the saying it's over, because it's just
But you being in the
That-
business side of it, that's what
yeah,
I
you
was
being
kind of
yeah,
wondering.
this is true. You being the business side of it would have a little bit more insight on that.
And you were
'Cause,
in
I
there
mean,
a long time. Like,
It
we
was
were in-
weird. I mean, I was there the whole decade of the 90s, basically.
Right.
So I saw a lot of different trends. Like I said, you saw the grunge, you saw the hip hop, you saw R&B really take over. And to this day, it's, if you look on the charts and stuff, it still has. It's still more prominent.
Yep,
Rock, Gene Simmons likes to say rock is dead.
and it is.
What happened was, to me, is Sirius and XM and all that put it into so many genres, to me, that they killed it, because there's a subgenre of a subgenre of
it
a
became
subgenre.
watered down.
Yeah. When like in the 80s, top 40, you would hear rock, you would hear some soul.
Yeah.
It was whatever was popular, what was on the Billboard charts, whatever Casey
Little bit
Kasem was
yeah.
doing, the top 40. It didn't matter. It was overarching. It wasn't just it was just rock. It wasn't just pop. It was an amalgam of all that. And to me, so in the 80s, in 70s and 80s, we got to listen and absorb a lot of different types of genres. But now, if it's like, well, if you want to listen to country, what part of country do you want? Old country, new country, Americana, folk? Do you want, and you can't just say, I just like country.
Yeah.
Or rock. No, is it grunge? Is it new metal? Is it black metal? Is it death metal? Is it 80s metal? So, it changed, breaking it out too much, and I don't know if that's ever recovered.
Well, I would say for me, it's definitely become where I'll pick a song here and there that I like, but there's no longer that artist or that band that I follow. I mean, there's old ones I follow, but there is, maybe this person had a really good song. I don't know their name. I just know I like their song, and I'm done. I like this one song by Macklemore, but that's it. I don't follow them. There's not been an artist or a band that I have followed in quite some time, since maybe 90s or early 2000s.
That's fair.
There's been new music and one song here and there, but
I'll go
nothing.
back to losing MTV and the visuals of a band, but not just looking at a band. The way they would present their video was artistic. And when you lose the visual side of that, when you've had it, I don't think you can ever, it never hits again the right way. Like, you can say what you want about listening to Nirvana, but Nirvana videos were pretty artistic. And you can say, oh, well, remember that. Everybody remembers seeing those videos.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
There was something to that.
I didn't have MTV, but I had Friday night videos on NBC on Saturday nights. I had, there was a countdown show every afternoon on like one of the local channels. You had Solid Gold in the 80s. You had American Bandstand. You had Soul Train.
Yeah.
Who eventually started incorporating some of the videos like you're talking about into some of the performance that they did.
And MTV gobbled that up and made, their own dance shows.
Oh, yeah. Yo MTV Raps, Club MTV.
Club MTV.
Yep.
Headbangers Ball obviously was a big one. If I was over at my friend's house that had cable, obviously that was a treat. I'd put in a cassette, put a cassette in the VCR and hit record and let it run all night, and then, take it home and wear the tape out for the next however long until I could get back over there or whatever.
You used to do that with cartoons too, didn't you?
Absolutely.
And you would tape over other stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
There's a
Absolutely.
story to that, right? How about we wrap up this episode with this story?
It's not suitable for...
It is suitable.
It is,
Okay.
Are you talking about the Scooby-Doo?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Scooby-Doo story.
Okay.
Then we're going to wrap it up.
Yep.
Just to wrap this up, since he brought it up. So, I, being a person that, had a VCR, that was the way you recorded stuff back in the day.
Gotcha.
And if it was something that I wanted to watch, by God, I was going to set the timer and I was going to record it and I was going to have it, whether it was music, whether it was a movie, whether it was cartoons,
Yep.
whatever. You
Whatever.
know, and a lot of those videotapes I still have this day. Matter of fact, before I say that, I still got cassettes. I still got 7,000 CDs at the house. And records and tapes and all that. Anyway, so I used to just have a couple of random tapes, and if something I wanted to record, I'd just pop it in and record. Not labeling them, not knowing what's on it or whatever. So I'm babysitting my nephew when he's probably 3 years old, I guess. Is this going to get me in trouble?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not.
Yes.
It's a coming of age tale.
It is
All
a
right.
coming of age tale. So I'm trying to play video games in the living room, and he's just a little boy, and he's wanting to watch cartoons and stuff. So I go put on the tape says, I happen to write Scooby-Doo on this tape. I put the tape in, hit play it, Scooby-Doo's playing.
Good.
I'm like, okay.
As expected.
Yeah, I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to start playing my video games and stuff. Probably playing on a Super Nintendo at that time, I guess.
Then you heard him call it Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?
No. All of a sudden, probably about 30, 40 minutes later, all of a sudden, he comes in there and he goes, Uncle Heath. I'm like, yeah, what's up? He was like, I don't think Scooby-Doo's on anymore. And I went, oh, really? Well, I'll come change tape. And then I went, something in my head just went, oh, no.
Like when you knew the sound shop was closing, you're like, there's something to this young man's
Yes.
concern.
And this terror just came over my body. My blood pressure went up and everything. And I was like, okay, well, let me go check. I'll be right back. And I walk into the bedroom and I'm looking, and no, Scooby-Doo's not on, but a full porn movie is driving it home. And
We're driving this episode home.
I'm telling you what.
So
no Shaggy, but shagging
yes,
is what it was.
yeah,
Okay, got it.
It was dead on. So
Okay.
honestly, I don't know how long he had been watching. I was so upset.
But you knew he wanted to spend the night again.
He didn't know what the hell was going on. I just said, "Oh, hey, yeah, no, yeah, you're right. This is not Scooby Doo. Let me get you something else." And I felt so bad as being an uncle. It was my sister's first kid. It was my first nephew.
I'm assuming your sister never heard this story.
No, I told him immediately.
He told him at Christmas.
Yeah. So anyway, I was like, "You're a shitty uncle," and all that. And as soon as, because my sister and my mom had went shopping, and so I was watching him. And as soon as they came in, I was like, "Guys, I'm sorry. I got to tell you a story." And I told them, and they were kind of, I mean, they laughed it off. I mean,
They were just disappointed.
No, they weren't really disappointed. They were just like, "Oh my God, really?" And then they started laughing about it because they knew it got all, I was so upset about it. And then they started laughing and stuff. And then
At least your mom didn't say, "Is it one of hers?"
That's true. Thank God.
I was going to say, at least your brother-in-law didn't say it. So do you have that?
I have another good Playboy issue story.
All right, well, you know what? We're going to wrap it up right there. Thank you for that. I like how you were looking like a Cheshire cat the whole time we're telling the story. You were ready for this. And folks, let us know in the comments about music. Music happens to be the topic here. So what genres did you hate? What genres did you love? And was Napster good or bad? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time on Princes of the Universe.